Yes, we're speaking with Professor Hisham Ahmed. He's in Ramallah, Palestine. He teaches political science at Birzeit University in occupied Palestine, not far from Ramallah. He has been a Fulbright scholar. He has his PhD in international affairs, political science from the University of California at Santa Barbara, and has taught at a number of universities in the United States. And he's an old dear friend of mine. Hisham, welcome back to Mideast Realities under these circumstances. How do you feel? How does it look? What does the death of Yasser Arafat mean?
Thank you very much indeed, Mark. We are in a very historic moment as far as the question of Palestine is concerned. The symbol of Palestinian nationalism and the embodiment of the cause, Yasser Arafat, is gone. He will be absent, will not be around in a very short period of time, as all indications show.
Hisham, what's the feeling there? What's the feeling there about what has happened to Arafat? And please, be candid, don't pull your punches. Tell us what people really think there, even if, of course, you can't be fully sure of what you expect.
Indeed, Mark. There is so much anger and frustration among the Palestinians on the street here. From the moment it was declared that Arafat is ill about 10 days ago, there has been a strong campaign of lying and deception by Palestinian officials around him. The picture they wanted to convince Palestinians of was that Arafat is suffering from some strong flu, but that he is all right. 10 days ago, the situation became more critical. The media disclosed that Arafat was not okay and that he fell unconscious. And then people poured around his compound at the Muqata, requested that he be hospitalized. 2 days later, as we all know, he was transmitted to France for hospitalization and treatment. Now,
why France?
The big question that people have been trying. Why France? Good question.
Yeah, why not only why France, but why the quick visit of his quote-unquote wife, who hadn't been there for years. She arrives, and all of a sudden he's being whisked off to Paris.
That was exactly my point, that in a very well orchestrated manner, after the news of his illness came out, Arafat, the quote-unquote wife indeed, arrives in Palestine and stays for just a few hours, and then he is moved, transferred to France. Now, there are so many fishy questions in people's mind that are being corroborated by some hardcore information regarding why France, what is it that caused Arafat's illness. Palestinians are a very faithful people, that is, that they are believers in godly faith. If Arafat were to die out of natural causes, people will grieve and will be sad and would mourn him for quite a long period of time, but they would be content with God's faith. However, from the very start, it became apparently clear that Arafat's illness is not natural. Some people very close to Arafat came out from his compound quite demoralized and talking about his state of affairs. The rapid escalation and the rapid deterioration of his health situation and the type of blackout of the news by Palestinian officials as to his health in Paris led Palestinians to be questioning. His private doctor came out on satellite TVs yesterday and said that since cancer is cancelled, is ruled out as a cause of the illness, and since leukemia is also ruled out, he said that the most probable cause of his illness and consequent death is blood poisoning. This is his private doctor, Ashraf Al-Kurdi. Now, here among the people, certainly the strongest probable cause that people are convinced of his illness is indeed blood poisoning inculcated in him, injected in him by the Israelis, but with the help of some Palestinian tools, especially from some of the people who have been wanting Arafat to be out of power in the lately. Now,
well, that includes
of hallucination.
That includes the Americans and the Israelis at the top of the list, and what convenient timing for them.
No doubt about it. One might not even rule out that this is the price that Bush is okay, perhaps, for Sharon to undergo such a measure against Arafat in return for Sharon's full backing and confirmation of Bush's success in the elections. We don't know.
Hisham.
But what we do know...
Yes.
Yes, Mark.
Go ahead.
What we do know, however, that by talking, for example, one of Arafat's guards disclosed that just 2 days before Arafat was taken to France, Arafat said, while he was painting, that this time it is quite obvious that they got me. In other words, they succeeded in getting to him and poisoning him. There have been 13 assassination attempts of Arafat, including some poisoning attempts, after Sharon found out that physical assassination of Arafat will be more costly than beneficial. Sharon, with the help of some Palestinians, resorted to moral and psychological assassination of Arafat's symbolism in Palestinian society. A variety of crises have been created around Arafat, whose solution and mismanagement led Palestinians to believe that the conduct of such crisis was meant to portray Arafat as a mismanager of crisis, since he is at the top of the leadership, while the mismanagement was conducted by some officials around him who have been feeding him misinformation and who have been besieging him no less than Sharon's tanks have been. In other words, lately a group of officials have created a barrier, a fence between Arafat and the people, and they have even obstructed ongoing contacts and communication between Arafat and the people to make the people basically hate him.
Okay,
to make
Hisham,
basically despise them.
My interpretation of what you're saying is twofold. One, tell me if you agree. One, Caesar has been assassinated by those who have always been his enemies and by those within who he thought he could trust. And two, if in fact that's what's happened, then the plotters will certainly now use the political moment to pursue the goals they have wanted for a long time, which will be to pretend that there's a Palestinian state, but it will be permanent Palestinian imprisonment.
No doubt about it. I fully agree, and indeed this is the fear on the part of every Palestinian here. None of the officials, the so-called officials, commands any respect among Palestinians whatsoever. Even critics of the Palestinian Authority previously had admiration and love for Yasser Arafat because of his symbolism and embodiment of the cause, and because he has refused to make the unacceptable compromise while staying under siege in a one-room compound at the Muqata'a in Ramallah. In other words, Arafat accepted to live exactly the same way as the rest of the people were, under siege, completely under attack all the time. But the rest of the officials, the so-called officials today, who want to project themselves as the current leadership, they don't enjoy any respect or confidence by the people. You should have heard such officials in the past week engaging in the worst process of deception and misleading and lying, constant lying of the Palestinian people about Arafat's health and about what they claim to be the functionality of Palestinian institutions. They continue to say that there is no political vacuum, that everything is good and dandy, and that institutions are functioning normally, while everybody here in Palestine knows quite well
now,
that
Hisham,
there's absolutely no institution functioning.
Hisham, why Paris? Why did he agree to leave after insisting he would stay and die there? And what role is the Tawil family playing? Are they simply trying to get all the money, and that's why they wanted him in Paris?
As a matter of fact, we are not even sure that the decision to go to Paris was Arafat's decision. He might have been led into that transmission to Paris. When his so-called wife came for a few hours to transmit him to Paris, this raises all sorts of questions about financial misconduct and embezzlement by her and other people who went with him to Paris. Individuals who have been staunch enemies of Arafat. For example, Muhammad Rashid, Khalid Islam, a so-called financial advisor to Arafat, and Muhammad Dahlan. They are the ones who accompanied him to Paris, and everybody knows that these have been Arafat's enemies. People here are raising the question, are they out there with Suha, his so-called wife, to divide the cake, or for what other reasons? To cover up for whatever medical reports may say about Arafat?
Well, Hisham,
these are quite strong questions.
It's likely to be much worse than that. It's likely they wouldn't be there if the Israelis and the Americans and the French didn't want them there. So they're there. This is not only about collecting the spoils and all the billions of dollars in the secret accounts. This is also about what they're now going to try to do on the world stage.
No doubt about it. They want to divide the financial cake, but they also want to be on top of the political situation. As I said, the process of continuing deception and lying to the people about Arafat's health and about what's happening is making people here quite angry and frustrated. People here are scared that they might have a post-Nasser era in Egypt, that will try to project an image of triumphalism at the beginning, while in actuality say out to the Israelis in total. Mahmoud Abbas and Ahmed Kreya tried to project themselves as the leaders of the Palestinian people now, but in actuality none of them has the audacity or the courage to face up to the people, to stand in front of the people and even deliver a speech, because they don't feel secure, they don't feel safe. People here are suggesting that this current leadership will exactly be like the Iyad Allawi leadership in Iraq, like the Hamid Karzai leadership in Afghanistan, that this is the kind of leadership that might try to conduct pseudo, false, fake elections only to give themselves some sort of legitimacy in order to be sellouts for the Israelis. These are serious questions that Palestinians are raising. There is serious fear that there would be real chaos now in Palestinian society, especially between the warlords who might want to try to divide to divide the cake, who might also work towards de-Arafatizing the Palestinian society. The de-Arafatization process would mean that Arafat's symbolism would be destroyed, would be diminished. 10 days ago, or about 8 days ago, the last picture that was displayed on TV of Arafat was basically a picture of demoralization, was a demeaning picture of him looking exactly like a cloney, with his pajamas, kissing the hands of his doctors. It was the most disrespectful. It was actually a criminal picture that was okayed and orchestrated by his officials. People here will not forgive this attack on their symbolism whatsoever. And this validates the claim that the end of Arafat is not a natural end, it's not a godly end, it's a rather an orchestrated end by the Israelis with the strong help of some Palestinians, some Palestinian officials who want to see Arafat out, who have tried to weaken Arafat and to besiege him exactly at the same time when Sharon's tanks were around his compound.
Yes, but it's more than Sharon's tanks. Sharon is now going to decide where and how the symbol of Palestinian nationalism is buried, and Sharon is going to attempt to make this event the burial of Palestinian nationalism as well, isn't he?
No doubt about it. Arafat, I think, will represent a crisis for his enemies in his death no less than he was in his life. The question of his burial was actually already discussed last week by Sharon and his government. Sharon was quite unequivocal when he said that Arafat would not be allowed to be buried in Jerusalem. Certainly he does have some Palestinian assistance and assistance from some officials to help him in preventing Arafat's burial in Jerusalem. Therefore, only some possible places are left, either to be buried abroad. There was a discussion of Tunis. As a matter of fact, there is information about preparing a house for Arafat in Tunis in the event he was kept alive, to be left there and to die in a most demeaning way. So Tunis is a possibility. The Gaza Strip is another possibility. I even doubt that Ramallah is being discussed as a possibility.
Well, those are all
compromisers in the midst of Palestinian society, I believe, will conspire with Sharon to give him exactly what he wants in return for false promises to make them the future leaders of Palestine. But they will not succeed.
Well,
no matter how the people are fatigued and exhausted.
Well, Hisham, they've succeeded at a great deal else. So all the solutions, all the burial solutions and symbolism you just told me about are all disastrous from my point of view, and maybe from yours as well. Are there any good solutions, or did Arafat box himself in to the point where there are no solutions and there is no good symbolism possible?
I prefer to say that he has boxed himself in. As a matter of fact, perhaps many decent people here continue to say that why did Arafat leave this legacy behind him? Why didn't he get rid of these emperors of political, financial, and moral corruption? Why did he leave them for the Palestinian people to deal with and to reckon with them? So it's a crisis. I cannot tell you exactly how it will unfold, but based on our observation of how other crises have been dealt with here by these so-called officials, I believe it would be a travesty and will be a tragic resolution of the crisis of his death.
Why could not the Palestinian leadership in a dignified way say, we want to bury him in Jerusalem. The Israelis will not allow us to. We will bury him temporarily in Ramallah, not far from Jerusalem, and when we have our state, his remains as the father of Palestine will be moved to Jerusalem. We ask representatives of all the world's nations who have recognized the Palestinian movement to come to the funeral on the following day. If the Israelis don't let them in, each of them can state, we came, we were on the border, we tried to cross the bridge, we weren't able to come. Why wouldn't that at least be the right way to handle this?
This is what should be done, but I'm not entirely sure that there is much dignity and decency left in after covering up Arafat's death and how he is dying, and after deceiving and misleading the Palestinian people all along with false promises about the Palestinian state and what have you, withdrawal from Gaza by Sharon and the like. Such mismanagement will continue even in dealing with the crisis of Arafat's death. And because of this, for once, I am not entirely optimistic that they would be able to behave politically in a dignified, decent way.
Well, Hisham, the responsibility is not only that of the corrupt leaders, because they've been doing this for 20 years now. And this goes back long before the Oslo process. They've been lying and deceiving for a very long time. The people, the movements have all put up with it. In fact, up until recently, there was still a lot of popular support for Arafat, but as you just pointed out, even that has whittled away because he's been so badly manipulated and badly served. But, you know, this goes back in history. That's why I use the analogy with Caesar. Caesar is dead. Caesar was assassinated from within.
You are absolutely correct, Mark. And perhaps there's one thing positive. If in Arafat's death, it will be putting the lid on the chapter of corruption, mismanagement, manipulation, pacification of the Palestinians by such officials. And I would even venture to say that in the strategic sense, the Israeli society, perhaps after Sharon, will regret the absence of Arafat more than any other group after the Palestinian people, because then they will realize that no other leader can deliver, no other leader can be as balanced and all-encompassing as Arafat has been all along. Those officials, those so-called officials, who give Israelis and Americans promises and about their ability to strike solutions, will soon be found out to be completely inept, completely unable, and to be completely despised by the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people are not about to take or to tolerate officials who will tamper with their nationalism, with their symbolism, and with their struggle, with all the blood they have shed after so many years of national struggle for national liberation.
We've been speaking with Professor Hisham Ahmed, Professor of Political Science, Birzeit University in occupied Palestine. As I said at the beginning, I've known him for a long time. He got his PhD in political science at the University of California in Santa Barbara. He's been a Fulbright scholar. And for those who are listening to this interview, if they would like to reach Professor Ahmed, they can do so by writing to Hisham, Hisham, @middleeast.org, or by calling our phone number, and we'll put you in touch if appropriate, the number 202-362-5266. Hisham, thank you so much for the discussion. I'm sorry it has taken the bleak turns it has, but we have usually agreed over the years about the strategic situation. I can remember way back when Oslo took place, I was pretty negative about it. As you may remember, I was doing the live commentary on the day that the White House ceremony took place. I did the live commentary for CTV in Canada. A few months later, I interviewed you, and you were more gloomy about what the future held than I was.
Indeed, Mark. I recall that very, very well.
So thank you for this discussion. We'll be in touch again, of course, and one hardly knows how to conclude under these circumstances.
Indeed, thank you as always, Mark. It's a very tragic moment whose consequences are yet to be told.
Thank you.